Jadon Sancho has spoken for the first time since his incident with Erik Ten Hag. And guys, it doesn't look good at all. As the boy is gearing himself up for the UEFA Champions League final, he has dropped some important hits that if you are for him returning, you might like or you might not, depending on where you fall. My name is Webb. This is the Net Sports. Subscribe and let's get into this early morning talk. Depending on where you are, it could be night, evening, or afternoon, but regardless, it makes sense to you. Now, listen, Jadon Sancho is preparing for a Champions League final. I've been thinking, I've been seated there and thinking, wow, how life is interesting. Just a couple of months ago, Jadon Sancho was, being sidelined and pushed away from Manchester United, and just the same person who pushed him away is right now fighting for his job while Sancho is preparing himself for arguably the biggest game in club football. And he could win. He could be a Champions League winner. Isn't that interesting? Life can be interesting, guys. Life can be interesting. But what caused the problem? Sancho refused to say sorry, to say, I am sorry. Just 3 words, I am sorry. He refused to apologize. And guess what? A player who Manchester United signed for so much money was ended up being banished from the club, from training, from Carrington, and eventually going back to the sender where he's beginning to find happiness. Now, here is what he's come out to say that first of all, he's excited about the final, obviously, but the key things that concern United in what he said is that he is not sure he wants to return to Manchester United because of the happiness and joy he's receiving at Borussia Dortmund. Now, that is a statement. Here is a quote from what he said when one of his former coaches, that is Benny McCarthy, who is on his way out of Manchester United, tried to speak to him to convince him to apologize to Erik Ten Hag. This is what he said. The manager said simple, all he wanted was an apology to come. And I spoke to Jadon. This is now Benny McCarthy, I'm quoting. And I spoke to Jadon as a coach. I spoke to Jadon as a mentor. I spoke to Jadon as a friend. I spoke as someone who grew up in the streets as well, who understands the code and everything. Interesting, eh? Benny McCarthy feeling macho there. Well, he says, I am not apologizing. This is what Sancho said. I'm not apologizing because if I do, I'm apologizing for being lazy, which he doesn't agree. He's not lazy, or is being late for training, which he thought was not right, and not be doing my best. That is what I am apologizing for, and those were his reasons. He says, if he did apologize to Erik Ten Hag, it would be like he's admitting that everything Erik Ten Hag is accusing him of is true. Now he said he was not going to do it. Now, do you blame him? If I'm convicted that what I'm saying, what I'm being accused of is not right, I cannot just come out there and apologize to just massage someone's ego. That's what he was saying. But some other person, a soft person, would say, you know what? Let me just say sorry and move on with it and focus on my career. What then would you do? It's a rock and a hard place. I think it's a battle of your conscience and against appeasing someone. What do you do? So that is what landed Sancho away from Manchester United and eventually landing him into a Champions League final. Had he stayed at Manchester United, he was never going to be playing a Champions League final. He could win it now, and what then would happen? So that is what is going on with Jadon Sancho. Now, it seems he's not exactly uh, excited about possibly returning to the club. He doesn't seem to be, moved by the whole idea of returning to Manchester United because he probably doesn't feel happy. He doesn't feel loved. But let's look at it, guys, and you can give your opinion about this whole situation, whether you think or not you should return. But you look at Manchester United as we go into this summer transfer window. The headache that INEOS has got, they don't have the money to spend. They need forwards in the Sancho position. We know what Sancho can do. I mean, he was not bought for nearly 70 million pounds for no reason because they know what he can do. And he's young, he's only 24. You can't rule him off. He's within the bracket, the age bracket of the players Ineos want to sign. In terms of his ability as a footballer, I'm not one of those who is convinced that Sancho was done. Like Sancho can never perform for Manchester United. I don't think so. I think probably certain players take a little bit longer than they should, but I think also the fact that who performed, who except I think Kobe Maino. I don't know of so many players who shined under Erik Ten Hag. That's the reality. So you cannot really rule him out completely. But I know he even played before Erik Ten Hag, but still you cannot really rule out a 24-year-old kid. Now, my thinking is we are thinking of signing players like Michael Olise. We don't have the money to sign them. But we've got two very good players. One could win a Champions League final, earning a lot of money, nearly £350,000 per week. That is Jadon Sancho. We've got a Mason Greenwood who is arguably the best player in his position now. The same position we want to bring in Michael Olise. If you put the two for me between Michael Olise and Mason Greenwood, any day I would pick Mason Greenwood. Honestly, any day I would pick Mason Greenwood. Now we have those two who are our players, and all we've got to do is manage their situation and be able to free the little cash we have to boost other departments. Now, what do we do? Do we? And I'm one of those who was saying for a long time. Do we then go on and because again the issue is the money. These are the things that INEOS are reviewing, by the way, because Erik Ten Hag staying will have an implication on whether or not we bring back Sancho, because my thinking is Sancho can easily come and have a talk with INEOS and they move on. His issue was with Erik Ten Hag and his ego. He massaged his ego. Some can say it was a good thing that Erik Ten Hag did, but if the boy refused to the point that he was banished from the club, there could be a reason on his side as well. So it's a rock and a hard place. We cannot know until you know. But my thinking is, this is my feeling, if Manchester United can bring back Jadon Sancho, if there is any possible slim window through which Sancho can sneak back into Carrington, I think Mason Greenwood too can sneak back into Carrington, can come back to Manchester United. Because for me, from what I read, the attitude, the mentality, the what Sancho did, and refusing to apologize to the manager, I think for me is worse than for the team. It's worse than anything else Mason Greenwood could have done when it comes to the team. Mason Greenwood probably, like, if people still think he had a case, but he's free legally. There is no case against him. There's no reason why he should be banished. There is no footballing or legal reason why the club should banish him. But if anyone feels Mason Greenwood does not deserve to relate with this team, honestly, his issues were more personal, probably a bit of anger management. I don't know, whatever could have happened. I don't even want to go into it because there is no issue because he was acquitted. Now, for me, if we can think of bringing back Jadon Sancho into the Manchester United squad with that attitude that the manager will tell you, say sorry, apologize for your post, and you say I won't do it, that's wrong. It's a wrong signal to the young players, the Kobe's. It shows he has got an attitude that can undermine the manager and perhaps create a worse situation for the rest of the team. Greenwood's case is away from football, is away from Carrington, from training. It's a more personal home issue. We all have our issues in our houses. For me, I think if there is, and I think it's okay, he's a good footballer, we can bring him back into the squad. But for me, if we think about bringing back Jadon Sancho, we should as well bring back Mason Greenwood. That for me, it's a non-negotiable. If I'm Greenwood, I'm saying if you're bringing back this boy, if I'm his team, if you're bringing back Sancho for what he did and what impact that can have on the rest of the squad, because what would the Kobis say? What would the Garnachos say? The Ahmads say if they saw this kid undermine the manager like that, Erik Ten Hag, and he gets away with it, he's brought back eventually when the manager goes, or even when he stays, he's somehow brought back into the squad. What signal? How will these other kids respect? Because Jadon Sancho is one of the highest paid players at the club, so he should be one of the most senior, not in age, but in terms of value. Should be one of the most senior players at the club. So if this senior player is setting such a bad precedence, he's refusing to apologize to the manager, and somehow he's sinking back into the squad. That's bad. He's, for me, a more dangerous person to be around the younger players we are trying to rebuild the team around than a Mason Greenwood who had his issues with his wife or fiance and sorted them and is back playing football. So for me, that's my honest take. So, and it's good Sancho is clear. He seems not to take this whole thing so serious. I think the fact that he has found solace in Borussia Dortmund, he's loved. I mean, the Dutch fans seem to be different. Everyone speaks about them. They are more family. The fans are more family. They back you. You're not just a player doing your job. They back you. They are with you. They support you. Most of these people seem to suggest that. You saw how Bayer Leverkusen were celebrating their title victory with their manager Jabi Alonso going and partying with the supporters. Who would do that in the Premier League? You don't see a manager doing that in the Premier League. So they're a bit different. But Sancho now seems to be as if trying to push an agenda to show that I'm happy here. I can as well not return. I could as well stay here and I wouldn't care. So my thinking is, if you bring back such a player, and with what you've heard about him in his clubs before, not for his footballing, but his mentality and attitude. Before you bring back such a player, I think you would bring back Mason Greenwood, because in any case, I think Greenwood is a better footballer than Sancho. Greenwood would be a more valuable player to add to this rebuild than Sancho would. For me, that's my honest opinion. So whatever happens going forward, I will be monitoring this. And if there is any form, because we cannot look at these two cases in isolation. Of course, people can say that what Greenwood is accused of was whatever moral thing. I mean, come on. The boy was acquitted. He's free. He's not guilty of any charges. There is no one. The same person who should have been taking him to court and everything is his fiance. They probably had a secret wedding and we didn't know. So we can call her his wife. They have a kid together. They're staying together. So let's stop with the hypocrisy and do the right thing. If there is a chance that Jadon Sancho can return, Mason Greenwood should be able to return. That's my honest take, and there is no two ways about it. Erik Ten Hag, again, among the things they're quizzing him for in reviewing the season is management of certain situations. Now, we saw already Jurgen Klopp taking sides and saying, you don't, as a manager, just sell out your player when the whole world is against him. So it became a case of Jadon Sancho against the world, and somehow he managed to prove himself that he still can play good football. And at the time when Man United is struggling, in the same positions he plays, so certainly there will be fans thinking, you know what, maybe we should just bury the hatchet and bring back the kid, because we are desperate for a player, such a good player in those positions anyway. So it's a very interesting situation, but still INEOS have got to make a decision, because if they are going to trim down on their wage bill, they can't be still paying Sancho £350,000 per week to play away on loan, because they're paying the significant part of that money even on loan. No club in Europe. And Sancho will be okay saying, I'm not going anywhere. You pay me my money. If you want me to play, I'm not going to Saudi. But there is no club in Europe that will be able to match those wages that Sancho is getting with Man United. No club. But Man United is valuing him at around £50 million if a club wants to buy him. Well, maybe there are clubs that can buy him for £50 million, but which clubs are going to pay him 350,000 quid per week? Unless he's going to Real Madrid, Manchester City. I don't know. Or he's going to Saudi, of which for a 24-year-old English boy, Saudi cannot be an option yet when he's about to win a Champions League final or even just playing in the final. So it's a very tricky situation that INEOS will be looking to sort very soon. So that's where we are with this whole Jadon Sancho talk. My name is Webb. This is the United Hot Sport. We are still waiting and monitoring to see what exactly INEOS will do. The decision INEOS makes about the manager will have a huge impact on whether or not Jadon Sancho returns to Manchester United. My hope is if he returns, and when he does, I think Mason Greenwood should come ahead of him. Should enter Carrington before he does. This is the United Hot Sport. Good enough. INEOS are considering triggering the contract extension in Greenwood's contract. So, guys, all hope is not lost. Subscribe. I'll catch you later.